We are completely failing at this point to respond to the warnings of the climate scientists. We're carrying on with business as usual as if climate change just isn't happening, and with an energy system that is not delivering access to energy for the 1.5 billion people out there who live far from the national grid and yet whose villages are rich in energy. Energy that pours out of the sky every day, blows past in the wind, but they have no way to harness that energy.
Climate change is already happening. From devastating droughts, storms and floods to shrinking ice caps, we are altering our planet in dangerous and unpredictable ways. 2/3 of greenhouse gas emissions come from burning fossil fuels to produce energy. But we can't just switch off the lights, and the world's poor need power to work their way out of poverty. So, how do we avoid a global catastrophe? Well, it's quite simple. We have to switch to renewables, sun, wind and water. We need to do it now, and we need to do it fast. Luckily, the Earth receives more energy from the sun in 1 hour than we use in an entire year. And there's enough wind to power the globe 10 times over. If we covered just this much of our deserts with solar, we could produce enough electricity to power the world.
At recent meetings convened by UNDP and the Climate Parliament, legislators who are working worldwide to combat climate change have been debating the news that the economics of renewable energy are now approaching a breakthrough.
What we see today, that the capital cost of putting up renewable energy power plants have come down. So if you are putting a new modern coal-fired thermal power plant and a solar PV plant, the costs are almost the similar per megawatt basis. It's about $1 million per megawatt for both.
This dramatic change in the balance of costs now makes renewable energy a realistic alternative to fossil fuels for electricity generation. And this has resulted in highly ambitious new development projects like the Ivanpah solar facility, 9 massive arrays of around 1 million mirrors in California's Mojave Desert, together providing enough electricity at peak to power 250,000 homes. So why is there still some hesitation in switching to renewable energy?
The main challenge is that renewable energy is perceived to be costly.
And that perception arises largely from the massive subsidies given to the fossil fuel industry.
Our governments are spending, according to such a conservative body as the International Monetary Fund, roughly $2 trillion a year of our taxpayers' money to make fossil fuels look artificially cheap, which is equivalent to about 8% of government budgets. A monument to the sheer power of the fossil fuel industry in every country represented here and every country around the world.
Some governments have felt compelled to maintain fossil fuel subsidies in order to protect the poorest from electricity price rises. However, the evidence is mounting that such subsidies have a very different effect.
The IMF again has done some work to show the primary beneficiaries of subsidies. And what we find, which is not surprising, is that because the richest or the middle class and the richest are the highest energy users, they're also the primary beneficiaries of subsidies.
So if fossil fuel subsidies are not favouring the poorest, but are indeed promoting the very cause of climate catastrophe, then it's no surprise that there's a growing movement to oppose them.
There is a facility that has now been set up within the World Bank to support countries with fossil fuel subsidy reform. The IEA is doing some work to support countries with fossil fuel subsidy reform. And we would emphasize the need to start by addressing this issue in the G20 because they've made a commitment to address fossil fuel subsidies.
And the Climate Parliament has a new campaign to switch some of those subsidies to renewable energy.
A proposal that we would like to make as a Climate Parliament of 1% of government budgets for renewables. We've heard of how much of government budgets goes into the promotion of fossil fuels. Why don't we see whether we, as parliamentarians, can get even a small subsidy for renewables that would allow us to make a breakthrough?
And the first dramatic step towards that breakthrough was taken in the Indian Parliament in 2014, when a successful campaign by Climate Parliament MPs helped to secure a commitment to increase spending on renewables to a total of 1% of all government spending.
The matter was raised in parliamentary debates. Again, cross-party correspondence to the Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister, follow-up with questions in parliamentary debates, numerous questions drafted and submitted to the government, and as a result of this continuous pressure and oversight done on a multi-party basis, there was actually significant success, MPs succeeding in doubling the commitment to 2020 on renewable energy. The target was raised, in fact more than doubled, from 6% to 15% in the new 5-year plan.
And in China too, the government have been introducing very significant subsidies for renewable energy.
We have subsidy. Last year the government paid 100 billion yuan, which is something like 15 billion US dollar for the subsidy for renewable energy.
China has made incredible strides in recent years, building a world-leading renewable energy industry almost overnight. By 2013, Chinese investments in renewable energy exceeded those in fossil fuels, reaching some $56 billion US dollars, more than every European country combined.
For renewables, according to the 5-year plan from 2011 to 2015, by the end of 2015, the target of renewable is 33% of total electricity power capacity of the country.
And indeed, the Chinese State Grid Corporation is already developing a bold scheme to link the solar-rich deserts and Arctic winds with the energy-hungry cities of Asia, Europe and North Africa via a so-called global energy internet of high-capacity energy interconnectors. So with India and China already providing such strong government support for renewable energy, what are the prospects for the Climate Parliament's 1% campaign in the rest of the world?
I would say that 1% of the national budget on the new energy system that we need if we are to pass on to our children a planet much like it is today, 1% is not very much to ask, especially when we've just heard that for fossil fuels they get 8%. But it's going to be a big political fight which requires leadership in the parliaments from people like yourselves.
And the reaction at recent meetings? Clear commitments from MPs from many different countries.
And so we decided when the China and India can reach a target of 1%, all our friends from Pakistan, Bangladesh also agreed for 1% target for the budget.
Sometimes when we present numbers, maybe they speak even sometimes louder than our arguments. If we take the case for Tunisia, Tunisia now spends 10% of the national budget to subsidize fossil fuels. 10% of the national budget, and here we're asking for just 1% for renewable energies.
There should be an internal forum. Each country should have a forum of parliamentarians on climate parliament, mold public opinion, bring pressure, just like we used to go and meet the Prime Minister, Energy Minister. They should create a mechanism within the country to achieve this 1%.
Before attending this conference, I had no idea what was going on, to be honest, because this is not my field. Me and my honorable colleague Imran Zafar, we have come to a conclusion that we'll definitely go back and put a calling attention notice that there should be a certain amount of percentage in the budget for renewable energy.
I think that's the role that we have to play, because we're not the prime ministers or presidents of our country. They sit down on Kyoto protocols and Copenhagen, and nothing much has come about it. So what is our role in this? We are not the decision makers, but we are the people who will help the decision makers take the right decision.
I think there is very little doubt now in the world's scientific community about what is happening. What we have failed to do is to develop the determination and the zest, if you like, the guts and the grit at political level to deal with this challenge. And that is really, I think, what these meetings are all about.
We all are going back home with a will, and definitely that will is inside us from heart, and we will do it.
We're going to do a big fundraising. The fundraising that will be done in Tanzania, a replica of which will be done in the other countries. We have 5 countries in the East African region. We have Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi together. So we're going to do it, and we're going to start in Tanzania. As a group, after lobbying the presidents, we're going to lobby the other members of parliament, and we're going to have that very big fundraising. We're trying to see how best we can do that.
All right, well, that's great, Beatrice. And
Yes. I have not finished.
Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to say, together we can. Let's not give up.
It can't be done by each nation acting alone. That's why the Climate Parliament, in partnership with the UN Development Programme, is building a network of concerned legislators determined to fight climate change and build an energy system that can safely power the world for centuries to come. The fight's not over. We can still stop dangerous climate change, but only if we act now.